Hey guys, welcome back. Robocraft early access coverage. This is episode 110. I'm Enigmas, and today it's all about the Pretty Hate Machine Mk.III. We're going to make a couple of minor modifications to the chassis, and then we're going to take it into a match. We're going to talk about its performance in the match. We're going to talk about the new game mode, the MOBA mode, and then we're going to make a couple more adjustments to the chassis before it's all said and done. We're just going to show you the adjustments, or at least the more involved ones, just for the sake of showing you the more involved ones. People don't question, hey, I saw it changed and can you show me what you did? We're going to show you right now. One of the things that I was kind of looking at after the last build segment was the position of the electroplates. I've added a pair of tier 9 electroplates up near the rear of the bot, just below the rear guns, just a little bit of extra protection. There was nothing particularly sinister or convoluted involved with that process. It was just a matter of spinning a prism around, or removing a prism to expose a hard point, attaching the electroplates to it, and that was that. This is a little bit different because we're actually moving the thrusters. We're moving the front thrusters forward one block so that we can create a mount that comes down, so we can mount the tier 8 electroplates on the underside closer to the chassis instead of having them dangle down so far. Mostly an aesthetic concern and not really going to do a whole lot in terms of extra protection. It was pointed out after the last video that it's possible with all of these guys to, especially with the tier 8 electroplates, to invert them against one another so that they basically produce one large sort of closed electroplate, and that's perfectly valid. That is absolutely true. In this case, it's not really what I was looking for. I wasn't necessarily worried about protecting every inch of the underside. We're going to get a certain amount of protection against plasma splash, but realistically, with the way the game is playing out in overclocking, a lot of it becomes kind of moot by the midpoint of the game. Sometimes even early in the game, you get people who get a lot of spotting points right at the very beginning, and before you know it, nothing about the build really stands up in comparison to what people are able to do with the damage output from pretty much anything. It kind of undermines the efficacy and the benefits of trying to do an intelligent build. So what I'm doing here, we've got the electroplates mounted. You saw they're a little bit closer up. Now I'm closing this sort of valley that we had between the two sides of the bot, because this would be where the splash comes up and goes directly to the blocks underneath the pilot seat. We do not want that. We don't want the balloon effect to be a common occurrence with this bot, and I kind of had a feeling before even taking it into a match that that's exactly what we were going to have if we weren't careful. So we kind of build in the gap, and now we're going to build it out a little bit with some prisms. Just more blocks to soak more damage is all it is. That's all we're trying to do. I could have done it with cubes. Don't care. It's for the 5% different. I just really don't care. And that's it. That's the new and improved Pretty Hate Machine. And now it's time to take it into a match for real, for reals, for real. Lots of SMG tanks that we see. There's two. Out of the first 4 bots we see, including mine, 2 of them are SMG tanks. It's because they're very effective right now. I just, the people who are really enjoying their supercharged tank treads at overclock, what is it, like 3 or above, aren't going to have an aneurysm because the treads are going to be eating a bit of a nerf in terms of the overclocking speed. This is kind of the situation where it would make a lot of sense to push forward and get as many spotting points as possible just for that early overclock. But in my case, I'm more interested in kind of doing the bot shakedown, and one of the things that I'm noticing is that the bot is just sitting very weird. When, moving forward, it actually tips up in the front. And it then becomes very difficult to control. It's one of those things that doesn't really want to turn so well. And I understand that the steering for hovers is centered around the pilot seat, and our pilot seat is a little bit farther back than is common. So we're going to have that issue where, once you start steering in a certain direction and you try and counter steer, it's going to be sluggish. And it's something that we can tweak, we can work on, address with, to some extent, the position of the thrusters. We can help. But realistically, it's the nature of a heavy hover that is not going to be quick to respond to much of anything, really. So As far as that goes, it's something that we can anticipate even going into the match before we get into any kind of real combat or maneuvering situations. But it's not the kind of thing that I'm going to, you know, flip out over and start gutting the entire bot and starting over, because you can't really have it all when it comes to this kind of thing. Now, this is kind of an opportunity for me to see how this bot's going to stack up and soak damage, which so far is not bad for what it is. There's a lot less mass attached to this bot than the previous Pretty Hate machine. There's not nearly as many blocks, means not nearly as much armor. The electroplates aren't lasting very long, which is fine. I'm not really too worried about it, but still, this guy's been going after us for a while, and he hasn't been able to kill us. I'm satisfied in terms of the survivability in the early game. Like I say, by the time we get to about the middle of the match, everything changes. My only thing now is I kind of wish I could just self-destruct and go back to base, but I have to wait. So while I'm waiting, I'm just kind of spinning around, and then I get distracted spinning around, and then there we go. There we go. We'll go back to the base now. We'll respawn. Shortage of medics. It's one of those things. You don't see as many medics as we used to. And the ones that we do see tend to take a more offensive role, which is kind of unfortunate. It's one of these sort of lack of identity issues that can really disrupt the gameplay experience. Here we've got this thing that can heal people, but also by the time it's overclocked, it's pretty damn good offensively. So that's what we're going to do. So I mean, my approach to this is, if in doubt, if it doesn't look like your bot's going to be able to contribute much more, as soon as you have the opportunity to self-destruct and respawn, that's probably better than waiting around for a medic. It's just a thing now. You know, when I'm playing now, I'm really just kind of going where the group is, where I can see other people and trying to support them in doing whatever it is that they're trying to do. There's really not enough of anything to try and take on anything more complicated than that. It's not really like any bot is particularly specialized in a certain area to such an extent that their role is clearly defined in what they should be doing. There are, you know, obviously there's differences, and there are things that one bot can do better than the other, but not to such an extent that it's like, okay, railgunners, you go do this, and plasma, you go do that, and SMG, you back up that guy, but also do this. And it's not like that. It's very linear, very one-dimensional kind of gameplay right now, where it's, you know, control towers, take down the enemy shield, take down the enemy reactor. And if you're on your heels, if the enemy's doing a better job of that than you are, then go after them. That's basically the way the matches seem to play out on a pretty consistent basis right now. So I got a guy shooting me in the butt. He took a little chunk out of me. But I saw that, you know, these guys were over here misbehaving, so I decided that I would try and lend a hand. I saw the laser from the railgunner there. He's being a little bit cheeky. I'm over here pretty much completely overextended. We've got a friendly bomber flying around up above, but still, there's way more enemy bots than there are me. And this is where you can see how all the hover blades are exposed right now. This is the consequence to building the way that we built them without a gap in between, where we could build some blocks and sort of do a more complete shroud around each blade. The upside to that design is that I get a little bit more redundancy in a slightly smaller form factor. So again, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You can't have everything. It's got to be, you want a certain benefit, it's going to come at a price. You want a different benefit, it's going to come at a price. You want to avoid that price, well then you have to forfeit the benefit that came with the price. It's just the way it is. So in this case, we do tend to lose the outer shroud a little bit easier in certain circumstances than if we had kind of split the hover blades apart and built blocks in between to keep everything together. By the time everything is overclocked, all the damage goes up, the rate of fire goes up, all of the things are happening, it becomes much less of an issue. The build aspect of the game has obviously, I mentioned this previously, is suffered as a result of this change, but this is just the beginning of the changes to the new MOBA combat mode, and I think that's what people are losing sight of, is that there's really no point flipping out over what's going on, what's not working, what's not tuned, what's not balanced in this particular part of the game mode, because it's like looking at a house where all that's been done is the foundations have been poured, and complaining that such and such room probably isn't going to be big enough, and this room isn't going to be the right color paint, and all this other stuff. Like, it's the damn thing's not even built yet. We can't necessarily go after it with the, you know, the condemning sort of, I don't like this, I'll never like this kind of attitude, because we haven't seen where it's going. But having said that, it's wow. I mean, it's a really big step backwards for the entertainment value of the game to have this whole MOBA thing come in the way that it has. And it's FreeGem feels that it's a necessary step forward or back, depending on how you look at it. And that's kind of their prerogative, is to say that, you know, we had this battle mode that was basically, you know, 10 versus 10 on certain maps, and then you go around and you kill each other until one guy's dead or you capture their base. It's not what they wanted. They wanted something more, so they're in the process of building something more. We've got the very first stages of that now to mess around with and see what we can do. It's kind of like, play it if you like it, and if you don't play it, come back in a few months. It's really what it comes down to, because it's complaining about it isn't going to get the next stages done any faster. There's really so little that a person can complain about now that hasn't already been covered, that it's kind of like not productive to sit around and complain. And my experience, and this is coming from my experience on the forums lately, trying to get a feel for what's going on, what the developers are trying to do, is that it's at the stage of complaints where everything has already been said, but people still really want to be heard. They're just repeating what's already been said, but it's very important for them to have their place in the spotlight to say it, which tends to make for a very negative sort of community vibe. It's the community is, you know, basically gutting itself right now, independently of anything FreeGem is or isn't doing, to such an extent that it's, you know, the community is going to ruin it for themselves long before FreeGem will have an opportunity to properly ruin it for everybody else. So, what more can you say? It's what's working and not working in the game at this particular point in time is as much to do with the community becoming toxic as it is with changes to the game and people being upset that things aren't working the way that they were used to. I can't really see myself spending a lot of time playing this kind of combat mode, to be completely honest. You know, if it was possible to invest time building, keep a bot that I like, and then build another bot, I could do builds and then do another build and then another build and another build. I could just keep on building and then do a couple matches in that build, and if I like it, like I say, keep the bot, move on to the next build. But the game doesn't allow that, unless you want to forfeit the potential rewards from playing in the tier where your last bot last enabled you to play. In other words, I can't do the building that I want to do in tier 10 and keep the bots because it's just too damn expensive. You have to play too many matches before you can afford the parts to build the next bots. When the combat mode itself isn't enough of a diverse sort of interesting experience to justify continuing to play it, and you can't keep building, then what can you do? There's not a lot to do, and for me that means it's time to take a step in the sideways direction. We're going to continue to monitor the game as I play the game. If I have something interesting to share with you guys, something I feel is interesting, you may not think it's interesting, but I won't know that until I show it to you, then by all means I'll put out a video and share it with you, whether it's a build or a match. I just felt like playing a match or two, and one of them was really neat, and I can show you guys. News comes out, there's always, you know, the opportunity to pick apart the changes, the additions, the removals, the balancing tweaks, all the other things that can happen with the various different things that are going to change over the next little while. We can talk about that as well. But as far as going back to daily videos for Robocraft, it's just, there's other games out there that are actually kind of really interesting that we're going to be taking a look at in the next day or two. Sometimes that's all it takes. That's all it takes to save from having this really toxic environment where everyone just complains day in and day out about things that may or may not ever change and have already been addressed in terms of, yes, we're changing that, or no, we're happy with it. Just take a break. Go do something else for a little while. It's the same as me not jumping in day one after the patch that brought these changes in the first place and giving my opinion on this and that, with all the server issues and all the people rushing back to see what's going on and everything's not working, and sometimes all you need to do is give it a week or two. Let everyone calm down. Let everything settle down. Let a first, a major hotfix come out to address a lot of the biggest bugs and do all these different things. And then you jump in and you say, things are working a little bit better. What do I think about it? To me, that's a lot more productive than just people want a video out now, so I better put a video out now. I'm not going to do it. So, as far as Robocraft goes, there's still plenty of potential. The devs are still committed to making the thing work. I do think they're at a turning point, and the next 3 or 4 months are going to be major factors in determining the future of the game, whether it's able to continue on a positive trajectory or whether it becomes another one of those games that everyone looks back on and say it was good and it had potential, but they wrecked it. Who knows? The devs are the ones who are in the decision-making capacity in terms of what they're going to add, change, remove. So I'm going to let them work. And like I say, I'm going to keep a close eye on it. I still read forums, I still read Reddit, still get an idea what people are saying, still very well aware when there's hotfixes and changes to the game. I read them all. But in terms of playing and releasing daily videos, trust me, some of the things that I've been tinkering with as kind of a temporary or a long-term addition to the channel, with or without Robocraft, are planning to keep us occupied for a little while so that we can give things a little bit of time to mature, as it were, to age appropriately. And then we'll be back and we'll talk about some changes, and that's the way it's going to work. So I'll let you watch the rest of this match. It's just about over. I wish I could talk more about the strategy and why I did what I did, but there's not really a lot of room for that yet, like I say. And it's just the nature of the beast. It's brand new. It's the foundation. The rest of the changes and additions will kind of address this sort of aimless feeling, I think. And then after this, like I said, it's about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes of modifications to the chassis to kind of address some of the larger issues that we had through this match, with difficulty controlling the bot being kind of the biggest one, so that if you are kind of following along with the build and you want to see those changes, you can stick around and do that. Otherwise, if you want to be notified when I add new videos, there will be some Robocraft videos in the future, but definitely not tomorrow. You can always subscribe to my channel and or follow me on social media. Links for social media in the information section below the video. Leave your comments and feedback. Keep in mind, if you're commenting and you've got replies disabled, behave yourself, because if you're being a dick with replies disabled, you're going to get banned. Just warning you. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.
Plasma bomber spotted. Your bottom fusion tower is under attack. Plasma tank spotted. Rail flyer spotted.